how using a workshop or a webinar can be a really effective tool to leverage someone else's audience, almost like lean on their authority and help build your own brand to get in front of new eyeballs and potential clients.
Welcome to Swift Coaches Academy, a podcast dedicated to bringing health and wellness professionals the uncensored truth behind what it really takes to succeed in the health industry with me, your host, Zenia Wood. As an accredited exercise physiologist and business owner for almost a decade, I'm on a mission to transform the lives of ambitious health professionals like you who want more and are ready to take action to create incredible impact in your careers and unlock financial freedom in your business. So join me as I speak candidly with industry leaders about the struggles and successes from within the trenches through thought-provoking conversations.
Ashlee Chorinsky, I almost said gal. You've been married now a little bit, so use your married name.
It's okay. There's worse things you can call me.
Welcome to the podcast. As a biz student, newly subscribed or working together, what I'm excited to go through with you today is behind the scenes look into some support, some advice specifically on what you're working on with creating workshops and using that as a lead generation strategy to get yourself out there a little bbit more, being a new business and trying to increase your audience. But before we dive into that, did you want to give like just a little rundown to anyone listening, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, and thanks so much for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this chat we're about to have. I have, like you said, just started a new business called Next Level Parenting, and essentially we tailor our support towards new mums and helping them optimize their lives so they can thrive in their transition to motherhood. So we specifically target establishing habits, routines, and systems that actually work so they can feel like they're really nailing it.
I love that. And probably a little different for people listening. Like you're not in specifically like the fitness space, but I would argue that this is still health and wellness related. So service-based industry, health and wellness. And I think that, you know, it's pretty similar in the terms of how we structure the business support for you. So that is awesome. So I wanted to start with, and I know we've touched on this a little bit and you've already done some of these strategies, but I wanted to touch back over how using a workshop or a webinar can be a really effective tool to leverage someone else's audience, almost like lean on their authority and help build your own brand to get in front of new eyeballs and potential clients. So we spoke about this a couple of weeks back and you implemented some of the, I guess, DM strategies that we spoke about.
Yeah.
In terms of going about this, I know we spoke about it, and I might even just start with the script that I gave you, and then you can talk about like how that went for you. So I sort of gave you this framework to use, and we spoke about, you know, reaching out in DMs. And I think the thing that a lot of people do is they'll say, hi, this other business name, and then they'll say, we do this, I'm that, and do you want to me to run a workshop? And I think the challenge with that is that it's very me based and it's not about what's in it for them or the other business. And people, I don't believe, like necessarily in a business sense, they don't really care about who you are until they know that you can help them. So the script that I gave you, and then I'd love you to talk to like how this worked for you. But it was like, hey, first name. So like find the person's first name. Don't say like Next Level Parenting or whatever your business name is, even if it means you have to like Google them, LinkedIn them, like find someone's first name. I think it shows that you actually just took the extra 60 seconds of effort. And I think that goes a long way. And then using a little bit of a strategy to understand whether that you're local or you have the same audience. So you're doing this one in person, so it's a workshop. So my suggestion was saying something like, I noticed that we're both local to, and you could say Brisbane, or you could even say your suburb. And we're both local to Brisbane, and we're health-based businesses who work with maybe mums in your scenario. I wanted to see if you'd be interested in collaborating so that I can add value to your members. And then what I found works really well is saying at no cost to you or them. So you can obviously do paid workshops, but I find that particularly if your goal is lead generation, not money from the workshop, which means that you're getting money potentially later and more by giving something of free value first, then that can be, I guess, a hook that grabs them in. And then saying, we've run several workshops locally from intimate, this is the authority or the social proof. We've run several workshops locally from intimate 10 people experiences all the way up to, say, 100-person events, and they've all found tons of value from it. I thought you might also be interested. Are you keen to have a chat? So really just opening up a really easy yes or no to that first conversation. How did you go with doing this? How many people did you reach out to? And what was your, do you have the stats on that, or just even subjectively, how did it go?
I do have some of the stats. I don't have the super specific breakdown, but yes, so running that first initial DM I found had a really good response rate. And I've ended up now, I'm currently in communication with 8 businesses out of the 36 that I've reached out to.
That's
so
a
far.
Pretty good response rate for people who are at least interested in having a further conversation with you, right?
Yeah, definitely. I am stoked with the response from that. And it's obviously reflective of how, like you mentioned just before, not saying me, my business, my service, what I can do, and reflecting it back on them was really beneficial. Out of those 8, 5 were from the very first DM. Another 1 was from a follow-up DM, which again was your further script where it's, just making sure you didn't think this was spam. I'd love to work with you. I love what you do. And then another 2 was just from the start of this week where it's a third DM, which again was your template script, just a heads up, this is the last time I'm going to message you. I don't want to annoy you. If this is not something you're interested in, flick me a yes or no by the end of the week and I'll secure you a spot. So I got another 2 from that follow-up one. That's
freaking awesome. I'm so glad that this has worked so well for you, because I feel like sometimes people do think it is spammy. And so that's why we have that in there in terms of hey, I'm a real human kind of vibes, because we want to try and connect on a human level. And there's so many people getting so many random DMs that sometimes I even end up doing these via a voice message. So in this instance, we're talking about Instagram, but obviously any sort of way that you could private message someone or whatnot. I found that email doesn't work as well. And it does depend on your audience or who you're working with, but I just feel like it's a bit more personal and a little bit less formal, little harder to ignore if it feels like it's just, hey, I want to work with you, as opposed to I remember, oh my God, the first time that I decided to do this reach out, I wrote a fucking essay and I was like, hey, we do this and we do that and we could do these 7 things together and these are the options and this is what it would look like. And I just think people, A, thought it was spam, and B, were just overwhelmed with the amount of shit that I did. And after refining this, I was like, okay, I don't even know if they're a good fit for us to collaborate together. So after a lot of refinement, I feel like this has worked. And I'm so glad that even those follow-ups, I think that's really important. I think even with clients, right? Even if it's a lead from a client, follow-up is so, so fucking important. And people just forget, or it's not their number 1 priority. And I think from a mindset perspective, it's getting out of our own way of going, oh, we don't want to bug people or annoy them. And it's just, like you said, I'm not trying to be spammy or hey, I don't want to keep following you up if this isn't something you're interested in, but getting them to respond and at least give you a yes or a no. Same with sales. The goal isn't to get everyone to sign up. The goal is to get them off the fence and make a decision so that you can move forward.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right with that, because I felt like I was being annoying sending up follow-up message 2, then follow-up message 3. I've actually had 2 people say, thank you for the follow-up. I missed your first message. And another one was saying, thank you for the follow-up. Like, my automated system marked it as read. So it's like you say, with the mindset, getting out of your own way, I'm just like, oh, I feel like I'm so annoying and like really bugging these people. And it's like, hey, please speak to me, like give me attention. But it is beneficial. And it's also, like you were saying, with the whole like spiel for that initial message, it's like, it's important, I think, to give them the opportunity to actually think like, oh, is this something I maybe want to pursue? Yes or no. And it's like, if yes, then we can continue and discuss the details rather than overwhelming them at the start with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've spoken to you about this before. Like, I think we need to go back to these conversations, treating them like other genuine humans on the other side, and treating them like a friend. Like, if you messaged one of your friends and they didn't respond to you for a couple of days, you're not going to be like, oh, well, I'm never messaging them again, they probably hate me. You're going to be like, hey, excuse me, I know, when are we going to hang out? Or like, just checking that you saw this. Like, that's what you would say, right? You may not say it's spam because they know you, but you would obviously say something that just prompts them that like, hey, I get that, you know, you probably got a lot on, but I also want to hang out with you, or I want to collaborate with you, or whatever the circumstance is. So I think that honestly, this works, and I'm so glad that it's worked really well for you. I haven't actually found people who it hasn't worked for. I just find people who don't work it. Meaning, if you don't follow the script, or if you do try, people who have tried to give, you know, like a paragraph worth, and it doesn't take much to feel like you've written a whole page on an Instagram DM. So making it short and sweet so that people feel like it's a person on the other side, not just I've sent this to 50 people. Something you also mentioned before that I thought would be worth touching on is you said, like, in a follow-up message saying like, I love what you do or what you're about. I'm not sure if you did this, but I would definitely recommend for you moving forward is to actually say something specific to a recent post that they've done. It's like, hey, I really loved the glute bridge exercise on your reformer Pilates machine that you were doing with the variation, looks really cool. Or something that's like really tangible, and it's like, I have actually spent some time getting to know you, your brand, or finding their pillars on their website, or something where you can build connection and also show that you've put effort in upfront, I think goes a long way. Even if they're like, I'm not interested now, they'll think about you later. They might refer you people. It's a great, I guess, way to get started.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, like trying to find, like you said, that information on their website or their LinkedIn, and putting it especially in that follow-up DM, really did make it more personal. Like, rather than just saying like, we both value health. It's like, well, there's not many people out there that don't value health. You know, it's not yes, it's relatable, but it's not showing that any effort is being put into understanding them and their business and what they try to achieve. Yeah. So yeah, making that one of their core values specific to that follow-up message, I found was really helpful.
Awesome. Love that. So you had 8 people who are at least interested. And then from there, I know you've had a couple of like first meetings, which is the next step that we recommend. How did you go with those?
Yeah, so I've had 2 phone conversations. I've had 1 in-person meeting, and I have another in-person meeting today, and then 2 more next week. And then there's 1 I'm in email collaboration with. And they have been a whole new experience, because you are so incredibly good with your framework that you provide us in this mentorship for the discovery call. But these need to almost be adapted. Like, they're sort of a discovery call, but it's rather than it is what I can do for you. But it's like, it's tweaking those nuances within the discovery call. Because with a one-on-one client, they're going to continue to be experiencing that pain point or those challenges that they're sitting in right now if they don't move forward with like my service. Whereas these businesses, they may not necessarily have such a significant challenge or pain point, and they might be fine if they don't work with me. So trying to adapt some of those discovery call strategies for these one-on-one, initial call vibe checks has been a real learning experience.
Totally. So let's just backtrack for a second, because you said phone calls, you said in person, and I think you can do either to start with. I do like to do typically either a phone or a Zoom just to do the vibe check, which is what we call like the second step. And there's really like only a couple of things that you want out of that, which is one, are they good people? Do you want to work with them? Do you want to continue hanging out with them? I think that's actually really important.
Yeah.
Something that people miss. They're like, instead of just, do they have my ideal clients, whatever, actually making sure that they're people you want to continue to support, and vice versa. I think that we work with businesses who are run by people who we know, like, and trust. And so building that personal relationship, I think, is really important. Sometimes, I think it was the other day, one of our students messaged being like, hey, what do I say? Or in these networking meetings and things like that. I'm like, you just need to like actually genuinely get along with them as people, because I know that I love referring to people who I personally like as well, and who I want to spend time with and who I trust. And I think it's just so much easier if we also become friends with them, as opposed to trying to be this super serious professional relationship only. The other thing in the vibe check is just like, are they aligned with you and your business? Do you have similar values? And then obviously, do you share similar clientele? So it wouldn't make sense if you were going to a male only facility to work with mums, obviously. But yeah, making sure that they share your clients, but you're not competitors. You can collaborate. So you're complementary in your services. So you, as I guess, habits, productivity, coaching, things like that, you probably wouldn't want to go to a mindset coach, because there could be crossover. But I know that you've been going to like physio studios or like Pilates facilities, which is a great place, because no, not everyone there is going to be a mum, but you're going to find a majority of your clientele in those places. And then other places that I don't know where you're thinking about going or have messaged, but you could be going to OBGYNs, or you could be going to any like pre-postnatal courses, you could be going to parents or mums groups. Like, these places, 100% of the clientele there are going to be your ideal client too. And just finding out who that is for whatever business you're in, I think is really helpful as the vibe check. It's not about like setting the plan and being like, this is what we're going to do, and like all of the things. It's really just like that initial like first date, I guess. Do you want to continue to hang out with them? And the one thing that we spoke about was, at the end of that, you kind of were like, oh, like, hey, we talked about some options or some suggestions. And then I was like, oh, where to from here? Like, we didn't lock anything in. Yeah. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, so I completely agree with what you're saying about build the rapport at the start. Oftentimes these business owners that I'm engaging with, are keen to keep working on their business, keep providing value to their clients. So, we are able to find a lot of common ground with values, and just even asking them about their enjoyment in the business and stuff. So I find, like finding that rapport and figuring out if we're aligned or not has been a really good process. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like we've started talking about, and obviously it's like in that initial like first date type thing, you don't then lock in like, okay, so we're going to move in together in 7 months' time. It's like you need like some subsequent dates to really lock in the nitty gritty. But once they've indicated that they would be interested in looking into doing a workshop, I just haven't had the prompts, or just what am I going to say? What's my actual objective by the end of the conversation, to be able to lock in just what the next step looks like. Because I acknowledge that next step isn't necessarily like, great, we're going to send our ad live tomorrow. But it's like, what is the next steps going to look like to continue this collaboration?
Yeah.
I just need to get extra clarity on that.
Yeah. So did you offer suggestions in that initial meeting, phone call, catch up in person, whatever? Did you offer like, these are like, I'm wanting to do a workshop, I'm thinking about maybe these options, would that work for you? Did you offer that up?
Yes. Okay. So because most of the time they asked, so what are you actually going to do for me? Or something along those lines. So gave them a rough overview of the workshop, but I made sure I tried to get a bit of information about any challenges that they faced with their clients first. So that way, if there was a point in the workshop, if there was one of the 3 keys that I cover that would address their challenge, I'd be able to focus on that. It's like one said that it's like, oh, like mums are late all the time. So it's like, okay, I'm able to focus on the goal setting section of the workshop, getting them out the door, that sort of thing. So trying to relate what I can do with the workshop back to the challenges that they've identified, that they experience with their clients. They do get an overview of the workshop. I don't give them like a 30-minute lecture on it. It's pretty much like I cover point 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
This is roughly what each point is about. That's it. Like, they don't need to hear the workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really smart. And I think exactly what you said is exactly what I think we've already spoken about and I would recommend in terms of getting their pain points, because you've got to think, instead of with a client, you can speak directly to them and their specific pain points. But as a business owner, they might not, like you said, be experiencing too much pain. And so it is diving into, what would bring benefit to them or their clientele. How can you add value? And sometimes the value comes in, like I remember I used to do these, the value for me as like a rehab expert, I would go into F45s, I've done it into Fit Stops and a lot of like one-off gyms as well. The value from my perspective as a rehab coach is that retention for their members, right? Anyone who is injured or gets injured, they want to cancel, I guess we would offer them in that initial meeting. I would potentially give them more than one option, not just a workshop. But we would say, like, we can be, for example, in the past, what we've done is we can be their like first point of call for anyone who is considering canceling, just to do like an injury screening to see if they really do need to cancel, or if it's just a couple things we could tweak, or if we can work with them for a period while they continue working at that facility, or if they do need to pause their membership for a little bit and then they can come back, as opposed to sort of canceling and then you've lost them or you don't know what's happening after that. So I think retention, that's a great thing. And then you also mentioned obviously the workshop. And so adding value to their business, adding more things that their clients can use and take with them, and not adding more things, I guess I should probably clarify, but providing value. So it's not putting more on their plate, but maybe even in future, Ash, it's like these mums might even just need like a checklist and a 15-minute thing. It doesn't have to necessarily be a workshop, or it could be something that's that they do in their own time, or something along those lines. It might be, I like providing maybe 2 different offers or solutions that you could, and basing those, like you said, off of the challenges that the business faces or the growth that they want to get, and how it benefits either retention or new lead generation. Like, you can say, hey, I'm also going to bring in anyone from my audience who might be interested, and they can come in and do the workshop in your facility. They can see it. Maybe we could do a swap. They could do a free class or session, or depending on the business, right?
I think having that second offer solidified is something that I haven't been pushing yet. I've pretty much only been going on the workshops. I think one thing that could be possible to explore, one of the places I was talking to does have an 8-week postpartum program, and they send out a weekly email with information. And they said, can you record a video or 2 to go into one of those weekly emails? So something like that, like you said, like it could just be like a checklist, just a way to help them retain, and make sure that their clients are getting the best experience. Like as an example, like if we were to take Swift, it's like if they're trying to do rehab exercises at home, but they're severely sleep deprived and they're just trying to like jam everything into the 5 minutes, at 9:30 p.m. once they get their baby to bed, like, are they actually going to be getting the most out of their rehab?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I just think instead of like solidifying that offer, I don't think you need to, right? I think sometimes that can stop people from going and having these meetings. Obviously you've been doing them anyway, but just for anyone who might be like, oh, well, I only have one thing, I'm not too sure. Like that's okay. The whole point is you're collaborating, you're figuring out like, hey, what are you struggling with, or what do you want more of, and how can I support you? And it's about brainstorming together and going, would this be beneficial, would that be beneficial, and then potentially having a couple ideas that you float, and then maybe having a couple in your back pocket if like off the fly for the first couple's probably not going to be something that you're super good at the first time you do it. But you could do a workshop, you could have those touch points, you could do the email, that could be like we said, there could be a second opinion, there could be other things that you can have in your arsenal to be able to pull out based on what they say they're struggling with or what they want to do in terms of their growth as well.
Yeah, I think that's something that could be really powerful, is actually, like you said, asking them what could a solution to this challenge look like for you? And is this something that I can help facilitate, rather than just saying, here's all my options. Like, you have to pick one of these. Getting them more involved, I think, is really good advice.
And it's same with like goal setting with clients, right? If you're like, this is what you need to do to get your goal, and these are the exact things, they're like, oh, you told me to do it. It doesn't feel like my thing that I chose. It's the same thing, whether it's really still sales, but it's just in the form of like a B2B relationship rather than B2C with business to client relationships. So I feel like hopefully that's like, does that feel pretty solid to you in terms of next time you have one of these calls, a little bit more clarity?
Yeah, definitely. I said I have one later today, so definitely going to improve that. I think the last thing I need to lock in is essentially, how do I close it? And like, this is what is going to happen next. And I know you've mentioned previously, I know for discovery calls or walking the floor that you're speaking about in the group call yesterday, it's like, send them the follow-up text or email immediately. Is it worth me saying, great, like, I'll be able to flick an email through to you this afternoon with what we've spoken about, and you will expect blah in it? Like, do I need to tell them?
Yeah. I would definitely. So I think oftentimes, because you've approached them, they're not going to be thinking, oh, I need to do this now, and this is, you're the one who's going to have to be pushing this, the next step of this relationship. And so I think the goal of that initial meeting is to obviously do the vibe check, make sure you want to work together, and have one or two options that you can properly lay out for them in an email or something to send to them as a follow-up, so that they can then choose one of those to move forward with. Or potentially, if they're like, yep, want the workshop, that sounds great, then it would be locking in a date or figuring out the next steps for that. So yeah, I absolutely, every single time, I actually have like a template drafted email, and you would have access to that as well, in terms of what to send immediately after, and potentially also a text that you would send literally as you're leaving the meeting, you're walking out, it would just be like, hey, first name, great to meet you. How great is it that we both love iced caramel lattes, ha ha ha, like something like, obviously, that like builds connection, builds rapport at the start. And then the next bit would just be, I know we spoke about workshops and, being your being referrers or something like that. I'm going to flick you an email, and you might have said this to them in person as well. But I'll flick you an email by the end of the day. Would love to lock something in by the end of the week at the latest, or something like that, right? So you're setting up the intention for the next meeting, reinforcing that you loved it, it was going to work forward, it was going to work to move forward, and then going from that. So yeah, it's just something like a little text. I always do that. And then in that email, it's literally similar thing that you would put. So, if you've spoken to them, you may not need a text. It might just be, hey, I'm going to send you an email. And the idea being, what do you want them to do next? What is the next action? Just like moving from a lead to a sale, it's like, okay, we've had our 10-minute text conversation. The next point of call for them would be like, book in your initial call or your sales call, whatever you're calling that, for them. So yeah, giving them those options, and then giving them some specificity, or maybe like you have an example template you want to send them, or something that they can think on, or maybe they need to talk to a business partner, whatever it is. Obviously that will need to be unique, but I typically almost lead them into the option that we were more excited about. So for example, I might say we can be your preferred provider, or we can do member workshops. I think what would work best based on what we spoke about was starting with a workshop and going from there. I was thinking Tuesdays or Thursdays between 11 and 1 in the next probably at least 2 or 3 weeks from now. Could you give me some dates that would work for you so that we can lock something in and move forward? Something like really clear like that. Does that,
Great.
I know you've got the template here as well, but is there anything else or any questions for you for that?
I would just say worst case scenario, send the follow-up text and email and they ghost you. Is it just a follow-up, maybe 24 to 48 hours afterwards, just like hey, just making sure you've received this, maybe go back to the initial platform that we were communicating on, just making sure I got the right email address. Like, is something like that appropriate?
Yeah, definitely. I love when you can add something that feels quite like personal, like I love that you said that, just making sure I got the right email address, like something, so it's encouraging them to respond back to you and they'll be like, oh yeah, I saw it, like I'm just busy, is probably like something that would probably come up pretty often. I actually have done this very, very recently with someone who I locked in. I didn't hear from them. I sent it on a Friday, and then I think on maybe like the Tuesday, I sent another follow-up email, and I sent a text as well, because it just like, that's the platform we were communicating on before that. And I think that, emails, we can get bogged down and we kind of leave them. So sending that text being like, hey, just so you know, I sent the email, would love to see it, like lock something in by the end of the week, or something like that, giving them a bit of urgency in terms of a time frame. Like you said, I've only got X number of spots available, or so I can count you in or count you out, like something where it almost gives them that binary response, so they need to move forward with it. And I already knew, based on conversations I had with this person I did the networking with, that she was already someone who like took a couple days to follow up with most things. So it's just that little prompt and nudge. And every time she was like, thanks so much. And like, I got all these things going on. I'm like, that's cool. Like, my job is to take this off your plate, right? Like, you just have to tell me what time to rock up, but I don't want to add more work to you. I just need to know the framework, or like when we're doing it, how I can access your database to email them about it, whatever it is. Like, I'm going to do all the work. I think especially if you're the one who wants the leads and you're the one who's going to them, you want to not add more work to their plate, because they're like, sure, it's value to my members, but if it's not a paid workshop, which you can actually definitely do, but if it's not a paid workshop, they're probably putting that at the bottom of their priority list. So trying to take any work off their perceived work or effort off of their plate. So you can be like, I just need your logo and this. I'll create all the collateral. I'll bring the posters into the office next Thursday, like whatever it is, if it's in person or online, you can do similar stuff like that as well.
Yep. Perfect. Sounds great.
Beautiful. Awesome. So have you sent that email follow-up to anyone yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All three have had the email follow-up. My very first one, we now have a live Google Docs that we use for most of our communication. Perfect. Putting the information in that, and I have like a little like to-do thing at the top. So as an example, like I've just asked them, I was like, can you put your logo and a preferred photo of you like in the document, so like I can access that for making the ad, things like that.
One step further, I would probably, again, I'm just thinking like if I'm a really busy business owner, I would literally go and Google or go on their website, find it, see if you can find a JPEG file or like an image file of their logo, and go to their About Us section on the website. I would upload them and say, are you happy with these?
Sure. Yep. That makes a lot of sense.
So again, you're just trying to, if you're the one who wants the clients and has a bit more time than this business owner, I would absolutely just go ahead and do that, or send them the collateral. Let's say you've got a template of an Instagram post that you're going to put up that has your logo, their logo, or your face, their face on it. I would send it to them and be like, are you okay with this? And just have it already done. Because that's going to show, like, obviously taking initiative, and what you replace the photo, but the text is going to be the same, really.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, reducing the steps for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is there anything, I think, just getting to this point is probably like a fairly big step. Is there anything else in terms of communicating with or setting up the workshop or a webinar or whatnot that you feel like we haven't gone through or that you wanted to ask?
Not that I can think of, excuse me, off the top of my head. I think a little bit of it is also my mindset and not feeling too annoying and too pushy. Because like in one of my emails I wrote at the end, it's like, I believe our next step is locking in a date. I have availability X, let me know what will work for you. And I remember feeling like really pushy sending that. But like you've just been talking to, all business owners appreciate the clarity and the real explicit, like, this is just the next thing I need to do. Like, look at all of this stuff this person's already done for me. I just need to do thing X next. So I think it's just like the confidence in myself in just being okay to use that language and just be more affirmative with it.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a difference between being assertive and being pushy, right? I think maybe what I would adjust for you, instead of I believe the next step, I would say, if you're keen to move forward with this, all I need from you is a date so that we can lock it in and I can move forward with it and do all the heavy lifting or something like that, right? So instead of I believe, again, that sort of comes back to the like, this is me, this is my business, this is what I do. And it might be a bit more about you rather than about them, their business. I would, probably just say, if you're keen to move forward, this is what I need from you, or these are the next steps. And then keen to hear from you by X date. Could be something like that. And, depending on your scarcity and urgency that you actually have, you might only have spots for one workshop a month, let's say. And so it's like, you could put that in there and say, hey, keen to do this. I'm meeting with a couple other business owners wanting to lock this in so that we can move forward, because I've got another couple people lined up. And if it's not you this month, I can put them in your spot or something like that. Depending on, you don't want to, I guess, push them away with that. But I do think that, like you said, being clear and having clarity, like as a business owner who's been around the block a little bit, like I definitely appreciate just the straightforward, this is what I need to do. So it doesn't feel wishy-washy of like, oh, these are the options, like, let me know. It's kind of like, well, I'll let you know next year. Like, it doesn't feel like I have any urgency required for that. And I'm kind of like, nah, whatever. But if I know clearly all I need to do is give them like 2 times follow up. And I do think that a lot of the work happens in the follow up. And that's rung true for me as well with that. Maybe one other thing that I wanted to touch on is potentially like free versus paid, because I definitely think that we can do these paid depending on like what you're offering or what you want as a result from it. I think that if you get paid a little bit now, it can shoot you in the foot to be getting paid more later, but also there's something to be said for people who pay attention. And so potentially having like a small fee associated with attending, let's say it's like $20, right? But in exchange for that, I like to provide value far and above that. And for you being an in-person workshop, I would be like, could you give them a habit planner and a nice pen or something that equates to that level of value? It doesn't have to cost you $20, but something that feels like I walked away with something tangible, or like maybe I got this PDF download if it's online, or maybe I got, a little micro course or videos or whatever it is, but something they walk away with, as opposed to just, I spent an hour of my time. Like we used to do these for rehab, and we would give people trigger balls and like little mini bands as something they take away whenever we did a paid workshop. And the other thing with that is typically how it's going to work if you have a facility, like sometimes you'll know they do workshops all the time and they might have them for $50 each or something like that. And typically how they run on the back end, just so you're aware, is it'd be like a profit share. So basically, instead of you like paying for and hiring their space to run your workshop in their facility. It's a profit share, which is great because it means that they have incentive to get their members to go as well. And you have incentive to bring external people from your circle into that workshop as well. And what I've found, this obviously just is variable depending on who you speak to, but what I have found is typically it's a 60-40 split in your favor, who's running the workshop, and they have 40% for being the host facility. Are you doing some free, some paid? Where are you at?
So at the moment, with the conversations I've been having, 3 of them have indicated the point that you mentioned, where it's like if the attendees have a small buy-in, that they'll often be more attentive, actually show up, things like that. So 3 of them are going to be paid, but it is looking sort of at that $20 to $30 price point. So it's a low, it's not, price is not going to be a barrier to entry for these mums. At the moment, we've discussed a 50-50 split. But like you said, like the workshop is not the intention for making money. It's the lead generation and the warm leads. So they've all been keen to do a paid one, and I'm really glad that you mentioned things like giving a little item, because that was something that I was thinking of, a little like habit tracker pad and a pen, and it's like, oh, is this something I should or shouldn't do? So that's, I guess, helped decide that for me.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to, absolutely. Like, you've got to figure out what's going to be worth it for you, especially if it's $20 and it's a 50-50 split, you've got $10 budget, and you might want to use all of that, and that's totally okay, because I think, and we'll probably have to do this on like another call, but I think the next part to this is like the goal of these workshops or webinars, for the most part, I don't believe is to just get paid for that. It is to use that as lead generation to get more eyeballs on your stuff, to work with you ongoing, and to sign up to some sort of package program. And you might offer them something at the workshop, but that's a whole nother kettle of fish. And I think it definitely deserves its own episode.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think the idea with this, in the way that we're speaking about it, is definitely to increase brand awareness, increase exposure. Like, you can be using this as marketing content, right? Like, now you've just potentially about to stand in front of 20 women who are your ideal client. And how does that pitch you as an authority if you have photos like that on your website, on your social media channels, even if like they don't know if it was paid or free, but it's just you being the speaker at one of those events, I think is a really, really powerful way to build your credibility as an expert in the space.
Yeah, definitely. 100% agree. Definitely going to be asking to be able to, set the tripod up and film it and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool.
Get a couple of happy snaps.
Absolutely. And get a photo at the end with all the women and you as well. I think that having as many of them as possible and building those is going to be really awesome, and continuing to create content on the day or when you're setting up for it as well.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We might leave it there, and we'll have to probably come back for like what to do at the workshop, or a little bit more in terms of gathering details before it, and things like that. Thank you so much, Ash. I hope you got a ton out of this call today, and that anyone listening is like writing notes feverishly and implementing this stuff too, because like I said, the whole point is to like give you the templates, the scripts, the strategies, and while not everything can be scripted, I think that having the framework builds the confidence for you to be able to go and execute on this stuff when you're struggling with, oh, like, is this what I should say, or is this going to work? If you just follow the plan, like I've done this hundreds of times, it works.
Yeah, 100%. Like, having the frameworks is so powerful. You're not, it's not a blind just trust the process, but it is like, okay, I know that I'm pointed in the right direction, and if I keep putting the effort into each step that I take, I'm going to move towards the outcome I want. So they've been very beneficial.
Awesome. I love it. And I'm keen to hear how they go and see the workshops in action. Oh, it's going to be great.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. My pleasure. I will see you on our next call.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.
I have a tiny favor to ask of you, and that is to just hit that subscribe button if you have not done it yet. If you've made it this far, then I hope that this has been valuable for you and for us to get more incredible guests in front of your earlobes and faces. If you're watching us on YouTube, then please do that now. And if you have any feedback or suggestions for me, or something that was a golden nugget that really stood out to you in this episode, I would absolutely love if you flicked me a message over on Instagram at Zenia Wood Official. Until next episode, and in whatever you do, move swiftly.